Ever imagine yourself back in like 2010, with like a smartphone full of those early kind of grainy photos? Everyone's just starting to use this app called Instagram.
Ah, the good old days.
What if you had been one of those like early adopters, building a following before the algorithm went crazy, before every brand and their dog had a perfectly curated feed?
You'd be an influencer now,
Right,
right?
right.
Maybe even running your own digital empire.
It's crazy to think about.
Well, today's deep dive is all about that timing element, spotting trends before they become huge
Mm,
especially in, the world of digital marketing and tech.
that's right. And we've got a great stack of sources to unpack for this one. We've got this article breaking down first mover advantage on different platforms,
Okay.
some wisdom from Gary Vaynerchuk,
I love him.
Clayton Christensen's take on disruptive innovation, and even a surprisingly relevant excerpt from Malcolm Gladwell's revisionist history.
Oh, wow. Okay.
It might seem like an odd mix, but trust me, it'll all come together. Okay, so let's dive into this article about first mover advantage then. It really hammers home the point that being early on platforms like Instagram, YouTube, even email newsletters
Mm-hmm.
gave businesses a massive head start.
Yeah, it's not just about the follower count, though.
Right.
What's fascinating is how these early adopters, especially in fields like sustainable fashion
Yes.
or indie music, which we know you're interested in,
Wow.
were able to build that sense of authenticity and trust with their audience, before the platform became overcrowded.
Yeah.
Imagine trying to replicate that level of organic engagement today.
Yeah, it's impossible.
Almost impossible.
That's true. Remember like those early days on platforms like MySpace?
Oh,
It's
yeah.
a bit of a digital dinosaur now.
Yeah.
But back then, it was the place to discover like cool new bands
Totally.
and connect with friends. There was a real sense of discovery
Right.
because it felt so new and uncharted.
Yeah.
You were there before the marketing agencies took over and everything became so polished.
That Wild West phase was critical.
Yeah.
Less competition, more organic reach,
Right.
and a genuine opportunity to connect with your audience, on a personal level before the noise drowned everything out.
This makes me think about the article's point about how early Instagram adopters, particularly in fields like, let's say, vegan food blogging,
Sure.
were able to build like massive loyal followings.
Oh, yeah.
They became like the go-to experts in their niches,
Yeah.
because they were there from the beginning, sharing their stories and connecting with their audiences authentically.
And that authenticity was key to building trust, too. It wasn't just about posting pretty pictures. It was about sharing their journeys, their struggles, their triumphs.
Yeah.
People felt like they were getting to know the real person behind the brand, right? And that's a powerful thing.
It really is. But this brings up an interesting question, though. Is timing everything? This is where Malcolm Gladwell's work comes in,
Okay.
particularly his excerpt on the Los Angeles bank robbery epidemic. It suggests that context matters just as much as being first.
Right.
Just because something is new doesn't guarantee like it'll automatically explode.
That's a great point.
Yeah.
Let's talk about Gladwell's research then, and this fascinating story about how Los Angeles became the bank robbery capital of the world back in the 80s and 90s.
Wild.
What's surprising is that the huge surge in robberies, it wasn't because there were suddenly more criminals.
It was because of a handful of incredibly active individuals
Right.
who completely changed the game.
Yeah.
Like this guy Casper, who was essentially the mastermind behind like hundreds of robberies.
Exactly. Casper had this system where he'd recruit these like young kids,
Oh wow.
give them minimal training,
Wow.
send them out to basically like storm banks.
Jeez.
He'd pay them a pittance, of course, while he took the lion's share of the loot.
Classic.
His story is a crucial piece of the puzzle when we're talking about trends and timing.
So it highlights that trends need the right conditions to take off.
Right.
What seems like overnight success is often years in the making.
Think of it like wildfire.
Oh, yeah.
You need dry wood, wind, and a spark for it to spread rapidly.
Yeah.
The same goes for trends. There needs to be a convergence of factors,
Right.
for something to like catch on and become a phenomenon.
So if timing isn't everything, then where's like the sweet spot for opportunity right now? What are today's early adopter spaces? The article hints at some possibilities like AI, Web3 immersive experiences.
Right.
But how do we like separate the hype from the genuinely transformative stuff.
And that's where Gary Vaynerchuk's expertise comes in. He's been talking about this concept of spotting the next big thing for years, emphasizing the need for action over observation.
Right.
It's not enough to just like identify a trend. You have to understand its potential and then actually do something about it.
This is where things start to get exciting for you listening in. This isn't just about like massive corporations. This is about you, your skills, your passions.
That's all right.
What if you could combine those with an emerging platform or technology before everyone else catches on?
It's a big question.
What kind of opportunities could that unlock?
Let's say, for example, you're a creative person.
Okay.
Like we know you are. Have you considered experimenting with AI art platforms?
Interesting.
You could be pushing the boundaries of what's possible in that space before it explodes into the mainstream. And that's just one example.
Yeah.
The possibilities are truly endless if you're willing to explore and take some risks.
That's really powerful. Okay, so we've got the AI, Web3, and all these like amazing new spaces. But the real question is why? Why should we care about these things, especially when they might seem like clunky or confusing at this early stage?
This is where Clayton Christensen's theory of disruptive innovation comes into play.
Okay, his argument is that it's not about blindly chasing every shiny new object.
Right.
It's about recognizing when the underlying needs are changing, even if the technology itself seems like rough around the edges at first.
Can you give us an example of this? I think this concept is easier to grasp with a real-world story.
Think about Netflix.
Okay.
Remember how terrible like early streaming was?
Oh, yeah.
Limited selection, buffering issues, a far cry from the seamless experience we have today. But Netflix was tapping into a fundamental shift in how people wanted to consume entertainment.
Right.
They saw that need for convenience and on-demand access, even if the technology wasn't perfect yet. And the rest, as they say, is history.
Totally.
They disrupted an entire industry, and Blockbuster became a cautionary tale.
Wow, that's a great example. It really highlights how disruptive innovation isn't always about like the flashiest technology. It's about solving a problem or meeting a need in a fundamentally new way.
Right.
Even if it seems a bit imperfect at first. Exactly. And that's the mindset we need to adopt when we're looking at emerging trends. It's not about finding the perfect platform or technology right away. It's about understanding why something might matter, even if it's not fully formed yet.
Okay.
That's where the real advantage lies.
And this ties back to Gladwell's story about the bank robberies.
Yeah.
Casper in particular.
Right.
There's an interesting aspect of like social trends at play there, the power of imitation.
Yeah.
If even criminal behavior can be contagious, as his research suggests.
Right.
What does that tell us about the potential influence of early adopters in a positive sense?
That's a great observation. And I think it speaks to a larger point about the way ideas themselves can be contagious. Early adopters, whether they're tech entrepreneurs or, in a less savory way, like Casper and his crew,
right,
can spark trends and shape behaviors in ways we might not initially anticipate.
So it's not just about being first to the party. It's about understanding the underlying forces at play.
Yeah.
And recognizing how those forces might converge to create like a tipping point.
Precisely. And that's what makes this whole conversation so exciting. We're not just talking about abstract theories here.
Yeah.
We're talking about understanding the mechanisms of change and how those mechanisms can create opportunities, not just for businesses, but for individuals like yourself.
So listening to all this, it seems like the takeaway isn't to like frantically chase every new app or tech trend that pops up.
Absolutely. It's about cultivating a sense of curiosity.
Right.
A willingness to explore those weird little things that others might overlook.
And maybe even those things that like raise a few eyebrows.
Right?
Like, wait, are you really into that?
Uh-huh.
But that's where the real gems might be hiding.
What if the next Instagram, the next like disruptive force, is already out there just waiting for someone to recognize its potential? Think about what you find fascinating right now, even if others don't quite get it yet. What sparks your interest? What gets you excited to learn more?
Yeah.
Those could be signs that you're on to something special.
This brings us full circle to that image of you back in 2010 with Instagram.
Yeah.
What if those like seemingly insignificant interests you have today are the seeds of tomorrow's success?
It's a Good question.
What if you're sitting on the next big thing without even realizing it? It's
Exactly.
an exciting thought, right?
Absolutely. I'll leave you with one final thought-provoking question from Gladwell.
Okay.
If even crime can be contagious, if something as dark as a bank robbery epidemic can be driven by a few influential individuals, what does that say about the power of ideas and early adoption in a positive sense?
Right.
What ripple effects could you create by embracing the unknown and acting on those ideas before anyone else?
It's almost like we need to develop like a sixth sense for spotting these opportunities, right? Like, how do we train ourselves to recognize those weird little things before they become the next big thing?
It's a great question, and it goes beyond like just paying attention to what's trending on Twitter. It's about understanding the deeper shifts happening in, society, technology, even human behavior.
Okay, I'm all ears. Give me an example of what you mean by deeper shifts.
Well, think about the rise of the creator economy. Just a few years ago, the idea of like making a living from your YouTube channel or Instagram feed, it seemed like a pipe dream for most people, But now it's a viable career path for millions. That shift was driven by a convergence of factors: the democratization of technology, the rise of social media,
Right.
and a growing desire for authentic self-expression.
And the shift created a whole new ecosystem of opportunities, not just for creators themselves, but like for businesses that support them.
Yeah.
Marketing agencies,
Yeah.
software tools, online courses. It's like this ripple effect that spreads outward.
Exactly. And those ripples are still expanding. The creator economy is constantly evolving with new platforms and technologies emerging all the time.
Yeah.
And that's where the opportunity lies for those who are paying attention
Right.
and willing to experiment.
So when we talk about AI, Web3, and immersive experiences, are we talking about potential creator economy 2.0 kind of stuff? Like, are these the spaces where those ripples are going to be felt the most?
I think that's a very astute observation. Those spaces definitely have the potential to reshape the creator economy in profound ways. Just think about the possibilities of like AI-powered tools that can help creators generate content, manage their businesses, and connect with their audiences in more personalized ways.
That sounds both amazing and a little intimidating. Like, are we going to be replaced by robots?
Not necessarily. I think it's more about collaboration than replacement. AI can augment human creativity and free us up to focus on the things we do best, right? Connecting with people, telling stories, building communities.
And how does Web3 fit into all of this? I feel like I'm still trying to wrap my head around that whole concept.
Web3 is all about decentralization and ownership.
Oh.
It's the idea that creators and their communities should have more control over their content and how it's monetized.
Right.
Instead of relying on like centralized platforms like Facebook or YouTube, creators can use blockchain technology to build their own platforms and communities where they, set the rules and reap the rewards.
That's a pretty radical departure from how things work now. Do you think it has the potential to truly disrupt the current system?
It's definitely a possibility. The early days of the internet were also about decentralization and empowering individuals.
Yeah.
And we saw how that disrupted traditional media and created a whole new world of possibilities. Web3 has the potential to do the same thing for the creator economy and beyond.
It's interesting to think about how these technologies might empower individual creators.
Yeah.
But what about like the potential downsides? Are there risks involved in diving headfirst into these like uncharted waters?
There are always risks associated with any new technology or platform.
Sure.
But I think the biggest risk is inaction.
Okay.
The world is changing rapidly.
Right.
And if you're not willing to adapt and evolve, you'll be left behind.
So it's a calculated risk.
Right.
We need to be aware of the potential pitfalls, but not let fear paralyze us from taking action.
Precisely. And that brings us back to Gary Vaynerchuk's mantra, right? Take action.
Yes.
Don't get bogged down in analysis paralysis. Experiment, try new things, and see what works.
That sounds like a great segue into our next big question.
Yeah.
How do we actually identify those opportunities and take action? It's easy to say experiment, but where do we even begin?
It starts with cultivating a mindset of curiosity. and a willingness to step outside your comfort zone.
Right.
Don't be afraid to try new platforms, experiment with new tools, and connect with people who are doing interesting things in these emerging spaces.
So it's like we need to become like explorers in this digital landscape, right? Really
Yeah.
always on the lookout for new frontiers to conquer.
Exactly. And just like any explorer, you'll need a map and a compass to guide you.
Right.
That's where your skills, passions, and interests come into play. They're your internal compass pointing you in the right direction.
So if someone is passionate about, say, sustainable fashion, and they're also like intrigued by the potential of AI and Web3,
Right.
they might start exploring how those things intersect.
Exactly. Maybe they'll discover a new platform that uses blockchain technology to track the ethical sourcing of materials, or an AI-powered tool that helps designers create more sustainable clothing patterns. The possibilities are endless when you start connecting the dots between your passions and these emerging technologies.
It's like we need to become like trend detectives, you know,
Yeah,
always looking for clues and patterns that others might miss.
I love that analogy. And the best detectives are the ones who are constantly learning, asking questions, and challenging their assumptions.
So how do we develop that detective mindset? What are some like practical steps we can take to sharpen our trend spotting skills?
One of the best things you can do is immerse yourself in the communities and conversations happening around these emerging technologies.
Okay.
Attend online events, join relevant Discord servers, follow thought leaders on social media. The more you expose yourself to these ideas and perspectives, the better equipped you'll be to spot patterns and identify potential opportunities.
Like we need to train our trend muscles, right? The more we exercise those muscles, the stronger they'll become.
Exactly. And don't be afraid to get your hands dirty. Experiment with new platforms and tools. Build something, even if it's just a small project.
Right.
The act of creating will teach you more than any article or podcast ever could.
It's all about taking that leap from theory to practice.
Yeah.
And that can be a little daunting, especially when we're talking about technologies that are still in their early stages of development.
It's true, but that's also where the greatest potential for growth and innovation lies. Remember, the most disruptive innovations often seem messy and confusing at first.
Right.
It's the early adopters, the ones who are willing to embrace the uncertainty and experiment, who reap the biggest rewards.
So to bring this back to our listener, who we know is passionate about sustainable fashion and interested in the potential of technology to make a positive impact, what would be your advice to them as they, embark on this journey of trend exploration?
My advice would be to start by asking yourself, what problems do I see in the fashion industry that I'm like passionate about solving?
Okay.
How might these emerging technologies like AI or Web3 be used to address those problems in innovative ways? Don't be afraid to think big and challenge the status quo. The solutions of tomorrow often come from those who are willing to ask, what if, today?
That's great advice. And it ties back to that sense of purpose and passion that we talked about earlier.
Right.
It's not just about like chasing the latest trends for the sake of it,
Yeah.
It's about using your unique skills and passions to make a meaningful contribution to the world.
Exactly. And who knows, maybe in a few years we'll be talking about how you were the one who disrupted the fashion industry with your innovative use of technology. It all starts with taking that first step.
That's a great note to end on. But before we get like too carried away with dreams of future disruption, let's bring this back to some practical advice. What are some specific resources or tools that our listener or anyone interested in exploring these spaces could check out?
Well, when it comes to AI in fashion, there are some fascinating platforms emerging. Have you heard of insert name of AI platform relevant to fashion, for example?
No, I don't think so.
It uses machine learning to describe a specific function of the platform. And for those interested in the Web3 side of things,
Okay.
insert name of Web3 platform relevant to fashion is a great place to start. It allows creators to describe a specific function of the platform. Of course, these are just a couple of examples, and there are many other resources available online and in communities dedicated to these topics.
It sounds like we've only just scratched the surface of this vast and evolving landscape.
Right.
And this brings us back to that excerpt from Malcolm Gladwell we talked about earlier.
Right.
His story about the bank robberies and the power of imitation got me thinking about another aspect of trends, the role of early adopters as trendsetters.
Yeah.
It's almost like they create a blueprint for others to follow, whether consciously or not.
That's a really interesting point. We often think of trends as these abstract forces that are beyond our control, but Gladwell's research suggests that even seemingly random events like a bank robbery epidemic can be influenced by the actions of a few key individuals.
Right.
And that's a powerful reminder that we all have the potential to shape the trends of tomorrow, whether we realize it or not.
So instead of passively waiting for the next big thing to come along, we can actually play an active role in shaping the future.
Right.
And that's a pretty empowering thought.
It is empowering, and it also comes with a sense of responsibility. As early adopters, we have a responsibility to be mindful of the potential impact of our actions. Are we contributing to a more equitable and sustainable future? Are we using technology to create positive change in the world? These are important questions to consider as we navigate this exciting and uncharted territory.
So it's not just about being first. It's about being thoughtful and intentional about the trends we embrace,
Right.
and the impact we want to create.
Absolutely, and that's what makes this journey so much more than just chasing the latest shiny object.
Yeah.
It's about using our collective intelligence and creativity to build a better future.
That's a great note to end on. But before we wrap things up, I wanted to circle back to something you mentioned earlier about the potential downsides of these emerging technologies. We talked about the importance of being mindful of the impact of our actions. Can you elaborate on some of the specific risks or ethical considerations we should be aware of as we, explore these spaces?
It's a critical question, and one that we can't afford to ignore. With any powerful technology, there's always the potential for misuse or unintended consequences.
Yeah.
When it comes to AI, for example, there are concerns about bias, job displacement, and the potential for algorithms to be used to manipulate or control people.
Those are definitely serious issues that we need to be grappling with. What about Web3? Are there specific ethical considerations we should be thinking about in that space?
Web3 is often touted as a more democratic and equitable system,
Right.
but it's important to recognize that it's not without its challenges.
Okay.
So, for example, there are concerns about the environmental impact of blockchain technology, the potential for scams and fraud,
Yeah.
and the fact that access to Web3 platforms and tools is still largely limited to those who have the technical knowledge and resources.
So it's like any tool.
Right.
It can be used for good or for evil, depending on the intentions of the people who wield it.
Exactly, and that's why it's so important to have these conversations and to approach these technologies with a critical eye.
Right.
We need to be asking tough questions about who benefits from these technologies, who might be left behind, and how we can ensure that they are used in a way that aligns with our values and contributes to a more just and sustainable future.
It sounds like we need to be both optimistic and cautious at the same time. We need to be excited about the potential of these technologies to create positive change, but also vigilant about the potential risks involved.
That's a great way to put it. It's about finding that balance between enthusiasm and skepticism.
Right.
And I think that's a good mindset to adopt in any area of life, not just when it comes to emerging technologies.
Well said. I think this conversation has been incredibly insightful and thought-provoking. It's given me a lot to think about and explore further.
I'm glad to hear that. And remember, the journey of discovery is just beginning. The most exciting discoveries are often the ones we make when we venture beyond the familiar and embrace the unknown.
It's like we're all detectives in a way,
Yeah.
constantly searching for those clues that point to the next big thing. But as we've been discussing, it's not just about chasing the trends themselves. It's about understanding the underlying forces that drive them.
Precisely. And those forces can be, anything from technological advancements
Right.
to shifts in consumer behavior to global economic trends. It's about connecting the dots and seeing the bigger picture.
This makes me think back to our conversation about Clayton Christensen's theory of disruptive innovation. It's not always about the flashiest new technology. It's about understanding how those technologies address unmet needs,
Right.
or create entirely new possibilities.
And those needs and possibilities are constantly evolving, which is what makes this whole field so dynamic and exciting. What might seem like a niche idea today could become the next mainstream phenomenon tomorrow.
We've talked about the potential of AI, Web3, and immersive experiences.
Yeah.
But what about some of the other trends bubbling under the surface? What's catching your eye these days?
One area that I find particularly fascinating is the intersection of technology and sustainability.
Okay.
We're seeing a growing movement towards conscious consumption, with consumers demanding more transparency and ethical practices from the brands they support. This is creating opportunities for innovative companies that are using technology to create more sustainable products and supply chains.
That's a great example. And it ties back to our conversation about how technology can be a powerful force for good. It's not just about, creating the next billion-dollar app.
Right.
It's about using our ingenuity to solve real-world problems.
Yeah.
And create a more equitable and sustainable future.
Absolutely. And that brings me to another trend that I think is worth watching. The rise of the purpose-driven consumer.
Okay.
People, especially, younger generations, are increasingly aligning their purchasing decisions with their values. They're looking for brands that are not only offering great products, but also making a positive impact on the world.
It's like that old saying, vote with your wallet.
Yeah.
Consumers are realizing they have the power to influence change through their purchasing decisions.
Exactly. And this is creating a whole new landscape for businesses.
Right.
It's no longer enough to just offer a competitive product or service. You need to have a compelling brand story that resonates with consumers on an emotional level and aligns with their values.
So it's not just about what you sell. It's about why you sell it. And that why needs to be rooted in something bigger than just profit.
Precisely. And that's where the concept of purpose comes in. Purpose-driven businesses are those that are driven by a mission to make a positive impact on the world.
Yeah.
Whether it's through their products, their services, or their corporate practices. And consumers are increasingly rewarding those businesses with their loyalty and their dollars.
This makes me think about some of the brands that have successfully tapped into this trend.
Yeah.
Companies like Patagonia, for example,
Yeah.
have built their entire brand around sustainability and environmental activism.
Right.
And they've cultivated a fiercely loyal following as a result.
Patagonia is a great example. And there are many other companies out there that are doing amazing things in this space.
Yeah.
From, fashion brands that are using recycled materials to tech companies that are developing renewable energy solutions. We're seeing a wave of innovation driven by a desire to create a better world.
It's inspiring to see how businesses are using their platforms and resources to drive positive change. And it gives me hope that we can actually create a more sustainable and equitable future.
Yeah.
Even in the face of some pretty daunting challenges.
I share your optimism.
I know.
And I think it's important to remember that we all have a role to play in this transformation.
Right.
As consumers, we can, support businesses that are aligned with our values.
Yeah.
As entrepreneurs, we can create businesses that are purpose-driven from the ground up.
Right.
And as citizens, we can advocate for policies that promote sustainability and social justice.
It's a collective effort.
Right.
And it all starts with that individual spark of curiosity, that willingness to step outside of our comfort zones and explore the unknown.
Exactly. And who knows, maybe the next big thing, the next world-changing innovation is already out there waiting to be discovered by someone who is willing to ask the right questions and connect the dots in a new and unexpected way.
So to everyone listening, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep dreaming big. The future is ours to create. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive, and we'll see you next time.